good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited for y'all to be joining us today here at Eduphoria for our Wednesday webinars. Y'all are in for such a treat today. I'm really excited about this time with y'all. This is part of our series called Design for Impact, and today's topic is going to be the power of PLC. So we are so excited for you to meet and just adore Shelley Kukulski and Belton ISD. Let me get through some housekeeping things really quick before we start our chat today. So first of all, I am Dr. Allison Ross. I'm a member of your training and implementation team here at Eduphoria. And today with us, we have Shelley Kukulski, who is a math instructional coach in Belton ISD. So I'm in Austin. She's right up in Belton, Texas. And I am so excited because y'all, this is kind of a beautiful moment in the making, as Shelley and I were teaching together over a decade ago. And today, I think we put both, well, I put on my Instagram like reunited, and it feels so good. So Shelley taught 8th grade math. I taught 7th grade history at South Belton Middle School a long time ago. And I'm just so excited. Shelley's a near and dear friend of mine. We have known each other for a very long time. And I still go up to Belton and visit her and the family. So we're good friends. But have always been a big admirer of Shelley's work, especially when it comes to coaching, especially math. So today, Shelley's going to be talking to us about how Belton optimizes their use of PLC to drive their vision. So let's go nuts and bolts really quick, y'all. Recording is in progress. You'll receive the link to this webinar 24 hours after it has aired, and you'll also receive the slides that go with it. If you want additional content, please check out our YouTube channel. It's always got helpful hints for y'all. And if you're a solid webinar goer, like you're like the goat of attending all of our webinars, you're probably like, gosh, Allison, this is the 400th time I've seen you. You're right. So we always have great content we're putting out there. We're so excited to share things with y'all with our new updates. So thanks so much for joining us today for another installment of our wonderful webinar Wednesday. So Shelley, before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am an instructional coach on our campus at Lake Belton High School. This is my 5th year in the position. I previously taught 5th grade math and science. I taught 5th grade math and science at a high-low SES school for about 3 years, and then I transitioned to South Belton Middle School. That's where we were taught together, yes. And I taught 8th grade math and Algebra 1 and pre-AP geometry there. And I spent 7 years at middle school and decided that I was ready to move on to high school. And I taught Algebra 2 on level and pre-AP for a couple of years before then I transitioned into my current role.
Oh, that's it's an amazing career, all the work that you've done. And you come from a long line of educators, is that right?
I sure have, yes. My mom has been a testing coordinator for a high school campus, actually in Belton. And prior to that, she was what they called facilitators for the English department, which is basically an instructional coach. And prior to that, she taught junior level English, honors, on level, everything. And then my brother is currently a principal at a high school in New Braunfels. My sister-in-law, his wife, is a principal at a middle school. And my granddad was actually a principal of Belton High School in the late 60s. So, yes. So,
oh my goodness.
And then, yeah, my grandmother was a 3rd grade teacher. So we have education all over the place.
All over the place. I love that. And just a little lanyard for y'all. For anyone that has Louisiana roots, you'll know that's a little something extra. Shelley and I have been dear friends, I know, for at least 15 years, I want to say. Yeah. But Shelley is a devout Aggie and I am a devout LSU Tiger, and we are the best of friends. So guys, it can happen. Even after A&M joined the SEC, We still remained so close. So,
That's right.
um,
Yeah.
just a little extra there. Things for Poria. So, let's jump into it. Shelley, can you talk to me about Belton ISD, a place where we have both worked and grown our careers. Tell me about what vision or objective aligns the work y'all do in PLC.
So, Belton ISD's vision is to empower each and every learner to pursue their dreams and enrich their communities. And one of our district goals that supports our district vision is to ensure exceptional learning experiences for each and every learner. So, our campus goal is to we support and align to our district's vision and mission, and in order to ensure that all students, regardless of the teacher they are assigned, received exceptional bell-to-bell learning. Our campus functions in PLCs where the focus is always on student learning.
I love that. Do y'all have an anchoring text that y'all or framework that y'all operate within for your PLCs?
Yes, so our PLCs operate using the four guiding principles that Rick DuFour developed of how every PLC should function. And those four questions, there as you see them, are what do we want all students to know and be able to do? So that's where we look at the TEKS for the course, we unpack the learning standard, and we develop I can statements for the students. What should they learn and be able to do each and every day that they leave our classroom? And
I
then
love
the
that.
second guiding principle is how will we know if they learned it? So we talk about how will we assess them? We create the summative assessments that should verify the student learning, and then we develop the formative assessments that should guide our next day's instruction. His third principle is how will we respond when students do not learn? So when we give the formative assessments and students haven't learned it, you should consider if it's an entire class reteach or a small group reteach. So depending on how overall your students do. So if a large amount of students don't learn it, then we would reteach. And then if I do a whole class reteach, and then if it's just a small group, then we would do a small group reteach the next day. And then the fourth guiding principle is how will we respond and extend when students have learned it? So we consider what will we do for the students who learn it? How will we extend their learning without giving them just free time?
When we were really working on the planning of this, I love that the approach that DuFour gives. I'm also just really excited about that fourth question. With what do we do once they learn? I mean, let's challenge them. There's so much research that's out there about when we think about the kids at the top of the proverbial bubble and how we challenge them, the bubble actually does come up. And so how do we extend that learning? I love that Belton is focusing on that and you're driving that within the vision.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think in the past it's been a struggle because we're usually just so worried about the kids who aren't getting it. What are we doing for them? And so then really we've got to look at what are we doing for the kids? How are we extending for the kids that do get it and making the work meaningful? So,
yes.
yeah,
And, when we make that work meaningful, that's whenever we have higher engagement levels with students, we have greater senses of belonging of students within our learning organizations, and ultimately we have higher academic success for those students. I love
exactly.
that that's what y'all are using. Well, so we kind of unpacked, what Belton's doing, what their vision is, let's talk about operations of our PLCs. So tell me a little bit about how you use PLCs.
So we use them for data analysis. So that's a really a large chunk of what we do. We use them for planning and instruction, problem solving, and then coaching cycles.
Mhm.
So with data analysis, my Algebra 1 team honestly is my most high functioning PLC group on campus. They're currently utilizing a resource that assesses students every 2 weeks. And it's a 10 question star EOC aligned questions type test.
Okay.
We've identified priority standards for actually each math course. So the Algebra 1 priority standards are spiraled on each of these 10 question tests that we give every 2 weeks. So then we have official data talks in our Algebra 1 PLC every 2 weeks, and teachers analyze the data and they discuss student strengths and weaknesses. So we look at, are students growing on these TEKs tested? Have they grown from, maybe they didn't do so well on the first test. Did they grow then to the second test where that TEKs is tested again, and then the third test, et cetera? So if a student didn't do well on the assessed TEKs, we look at the question. Was it a good question? We consider if students chose the same wrong answer. What do the wrong answers tell us? So the wrong answers that the students did choose, what does that tell us about the students' weaknesses? Was it just a careless error, or was it a complete misunderstanding? And then we look at if maybe a teacher had more students do well on a certain TEKs. And if so, we want to have those talks with the teacher. What are you doing in class? What instructional strategies are you using that maybe other teachers aren't using to get, to help your students?
The question sequencing that you're talking about is a lot of how we also coach principals of when we're looking at skew within our data, especially surrounding those lovely 3 letters TIA is.
Yeah.
So if we have this growth measure and this teacher performance happening with this group of people, what's working? And let's look at that instead of constantly focusing on what went wrong. I love that.
Right.
I love that positive approach.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, are we moving on to the planning?
Yeah,
or I don't know if you
let's
had
talk a
another
little bit
question.
about planning.
Okay.
Y'all can tell Shelley and I are polished pros at webinars.
As far as planning, we have a YAG which is a year at a glance that all of our courses follow. We have curriculum documents that we designed for each unit of study, which suggests an order and a time length spent on each TEKs. And then teachers use this to create their PLC day-by-day calendar. And then after identifying the weaknesses and reteach needs from data talks, then teachers adjust their day-by-day calendar to utilize the whole class or small group reteach that is needed based on the data from the test that was given. So I think one of the best things about PLCs is how they actually affect planning. And they provide the best first instruction for teachers. Our PLCs plan the best way to teach a TEKs. So they discuss student misconceptions in the beginning, and then they collectively share instructional strategies to impact the greatest student learning. So, we call things like tight in our curriculum and then loose. And tight is definitely our TEKs and then our common assessments that we give. And loose would be the instructional strategies, the way that teachers help students learn the information that they need. And so through the PLC, they're able to share all of these loose instructional strategies, and then they a lot of times will come to an agreement that says, hey, this is the best way to approach math, and this is what we're all going to use. It's fabulous.
I really love that term, best first instruction. Do you know where that came from? Like what was the catalyst for that way of framing it, best first instruction?
Yeah. I don't know. Do
Sorry,
you know?
totally put you on the spot on that one. But I saw that in our conversations and I was like, that's such a great way of looking at how we approach instruction together collaboratively as educators, as that best first instruction.
Right. And that's just so that, we would love 100% of our students to understand the material on the first time. But that's not always going to happen. So if we can get 95%, 90% of our students in our class to understand it the first time, then we know that we're going to, reach most of the students and then be able to pull small groups for those students who don't catch it the first time. So.
And that kind of leans into what we were talking about with instruction with our PLCs is the best first instruction concerning how y'all share your collective strategies.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, as I said before, PLCs collectively share instructional strategies that have worked well with the TEKS. And then when these are shared and used in instruction, we have the greatest impact on student learning. So, and again, just best first instruction.
What about problem solving and coaching with your PLCs?
Yes.
What the operations for that?
So with problem solving, we just see that in our data talks, in our planning, in our instruction. So in our data talks with problem solving, if most of our students haven't understood a TEKS, then we're going to problem solve and figure out a strategy that would work, and
Mhm.
maybe go back the very next day in class, and utilize that strategy. So, and as far as coaching cycles, um, when I'm working with a teacher who may be struggling on classroom management or effective use of student discourse in the classroom, I can implement a coaching cycle with that teacher, and the focus is on the student learning, supported by the PLC process. And then we can build in those strategies that help support classroom management or help support student discourse. So the focus is not necessarily on um, like classroom management strategies, but through the student learning and these strategies that we would implement, then we can, work on classroom management and student discourse.
I love how that ties together. Y'all are really maximizing your time with your teachers and how you coach and really weaving all of that into PLC to make it this like effective element to how you operate as a school and as a community.
Yes.
Um,
So just constantly focused on the student
yes.
learning.
And that's so great. That's
Mhm.
I felt whenever we've been talking about this before today, I felt that very strong student focus coming from how Belton is really shaping what they're doing with their PLCs. Is it's about our students being successful, and that's everything.
Right. And it's
Um,
about, right, and growing our students,
yeah,
growing students, no matter what level they are. If they're, you know, the high students, we're working on growing those students as well.
I love that, and that's really, I mean, that takes focus. It truly takes a village, not to be super
Yeah,
metaphorical, but that truly
exactly.
takes a village to make sure every single student is pushed
Mhm.
forward on their academic path. Um, Thinking about this, thinking about PLCs, let's talk about wins and challenges. We have some people that are probably listening and going, okay, like let me pull one element from today, or someone that's like, I really want to get PLCs like up and running in a like really fortified way in my district. So let's have the real talk about wins and challenges you've seen with your PLCs.
So definitely our wins are I'll just keep emphasizing this. We're focused on student learning. We're focused on growing students no matter where they are. Um, our effective PLCs, they have a collective commitment to design the best first instruction for all students. They're not just talking about their own students that are sitting in their classrooms, but about all Algebra 1 students or
Mm,
all geometry, all Algebra 2 students. And then it's a divide and conquer mindset. So maybe one teacher will take the TEKS for the next day. Well, we plan, like 2 weeks out, but they have an assigned TEK, and they are going to plan the best lesson and share that with the rest of the PLC. Um, so those are definitely wins and advantages of PLCs. Just sharing the load, sharing the students, sharing the student learning.
What about our challenges? What challenges do we have? And I'm sure there are going to be people listening that go, yes, me too. But what are the challenges you're seeing with PLCs?
So, unfortunately, we do have teachers that would rather just teach in isolation,
Mhm.
and they really don't see the benefit of a collective team. So, you just have to kind of pull them along.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, ones that are okay with remaining stagnant and want to teach the same way year after year. no, that's a struggle
Yeah.
with PLCs. And then teachers that view PLCs as just another meeting. It's just a checkbox, something they can check off their list, and just don't necessarily see the benefit of a PLC.
I mean, I think that that can be said for pretty much every school district in the nation. You've got that collective, that group of people makes up a challenge when it comes to progressing forward. Um, I know it's just as coaches, I've seen that in my own journey as a coach. So find solace that you're not alone. And
Yeah.
I know that it's just kind of like you said, like coaching to me is like winning hearts. And especially the hearts that don't necessarily want to be won. So just kind of drawing people in. So I love that y'all, it seems to me the wins are far
Fake.
more
Yes.
like amazing and just kind of completely overshadow the challenges that we all are working on.
Yes. And they do eventually come around and see
Yeah.
the value of the PLC. And that's just like students in your classroom, students
Mhm.
who, want to work in isolation, who don't want to work with a partner or work with a group of students. And they eventually come around and
Uh-huh.
start working with others and grow themselves. So
Whenever I left the classroom and went into administration, I found the groups of students that I worked with were like, and the kids, the early adopters, the middle of the road, the late adopters, the same thing with some of the staff you work with. It's,
exactly.
not too
Yeah.
far off, what I was used to as a classroom teacher.
Right.
So how do you, and one thing I'm very passionate about is like building belonging within our schools, and through academic success. And so how do PLCs strengthen belonging within your organization and increase student success?
So um so yes, our teachers do have students that are assigned to their individual class periods. However, teachers that belong to a PLC understand that they are designing the best first instruction for
Mhm.
all students on campus, in that course. So that's strengthening their belonging for our whole campus, um, and increasing student success. So last year, the 2023-2024 school year, our Algebra 1 PLC was able to increase scores from a campus pass rate of 70% the year prior to an overall campus pass rate of 78%.
That's
And
amazing.
well, and we were a little disappointed. We were all thinking we were wanting to shoot, for an 80 something. And we set that goal there. But and we didn't reach that, but we were very proud of the growth that we did make in 1 year, and proof that the PLC does increase student success. It's very evident on our Algebra 1 team. There again, as I said in the beginning, our Algebra 1 team is one of our model PLCs, and the data definitely shows that.
I want to take a step back, and I think it's really important that we highlight the path that your particular campus has had with PLC. Could you just walk us through a little bit about Lake Belton's own journey to PLC?
Sure. So we opened Lake Belton High in the school year 2021. And that was the year right after we had the shutdown. So we opened only with freshmen and sophomores.
Okay.
And we had many singleton teachers on our campus. So we opened Lake, and we tried to operate using PLCs, but it was just really that year, it was about trying to open a campus under strict health guidelines, and just trying our best with singleton teachers. So it's really hard to have a PLC with just one teacher that teaches that course.
Right? Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
That's woo.
Yeah. Um, so the following school year, 21-22, we had freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, and still just some singleton teachers, doing our best, getting kids back on campus and school. So The third year we were open in 22-23, that was our first year that we were able to offer all courses for all grade levels. And during these first 3 years that we were open, the instructional leadership team led the PLC process with the best knowledge that we had. We utilized the four guiding questions, but really the ILT is what we call ourselves, the instructional leadership team. We were leading the PLCs, not really the teachers leading them.
Yeah.
So last school year, the 23-24, we had a new principal that she knew the strengths of PLCs and what they could do for a campus. So she actually paid for the four of us, four ICs, and our associate AP to attend Solution Tree PLC at work.
Okay.
And that was last November. So we attended 3 full days of sessions. They were taught by the leaders of the PLC at work. They've been former campus principals who led their campuses to high achievement of student learning. And they just now share their knowledge with others around the nation on the effectiveness of PLCs and how to implement PLCs on a campus. So we were, 3 days of just incredible learning. We came back, we were energized. We suggested that possibly our entire district be trained by Solution Tree, because we wanted all BISD teachers and leaders to have the same language. So
that's so powerful.
Yes. So last summer, the 2024 summer, along with some learning days that are occurring throughout this school year, 4 teacher leaders from each campus and our campus principals began the process of implementing PLCs with support by a Solution Tree PLC expert. So they met 2 days last summer. The whole district did, the 4 teachers from each campus and the principals. And then, they're helping lead our campus to utilizing PLCs on our campus. So this school year, the 24-25 school year, all of our teachers now have 2 preps. So that means that there are 3 or more teachers a part of each PLC. So that was new. Our master schedule was designed so that all teachers would have one PLC they share a conference period with during the day. And then the other PLC that they are a part of, they meet before school. We have a campus expectation that all PLCs must meet once a week. They have to share their agenda. They have to share their guidelines of what should be accomplished during that PLC. And we have established PLC leads to guide each PLC's work. So also on a large high school campus, teachers have morning duty and after school duty throughout the week. So we established the morning PLC times before our morning school duty schedule was established. So everything is really centered around the PLCs. They have the PLC time during the day with at least one of their PLCs, and then before school.
It sounds like PLCs truly embedded into the culture.
Right.
And I think that's why that's why it's so successful, is that y'all have really started from the ground up and built this beautiful culture surrounding PLC and focused on student learning and student success. Shelley, you've given us a lot of really great background info and insight into how PLCs operate within Belton. I'm curious, and I think others are, what are your pro tips for moving if someone's like, I want to try this out, or I want that, best first next step. So, what would you advise someone if they're like, Shelley, tell me how to get started. Tell me one thing or a few things that I could do to try this out.
So the first thing I would say has to happen to attend. Your teachers, you principal, campus leaders must attend a Solution Tree PLC at Work conference. Hear the leaders and see the amazing student learning that occurred on their campuses with the use of highly effective PLCs. That is a definite must. And then identify on your campus a campus coalition, which, I mean, you probably have teachers that are already utilizing the 4 guiding questions of the PLC process. They may not know it, but they're using them, and have them attend the solution PLC at
Okay.
work as well. So um, that is definitely a high recommendation, is to attend this solution PLC at work conference.
Yeah.
Um, and then if possible, have your entire campus, or, a select group of teachers trained by the experts. So, and if it's not possible to train your entire campus, um, use your campus coalition to become model PLCs on your campus, video them, share them with other PLCs, share their increase in student learning. And then definitely, I think a must is to design your master schedule so that PLCs are off during the school day together. That's important to provide them that time, at least once a week, to meet. And then set your campus expectations for PLCs. They need agendas, they need weekly PLCs, etc. So those are definitely, I think, must to help get PLCs rolling on your campus.
Well, I think those are really great pro tips. And, with all of our webinars here at Eduphoria, we really ask everyone to take just one thing and try it. Just take one thing from today, even if it's just looking up more information about PLCs, or connecting with you or connecting with us, and really just focusing on that student learning, that student academic success. So you have given us so much information to think about as we think about how to really focus our instruction collaboratively together to really address student needs within our school district. So thank you so much for sharing all your insights with us today.
Well, thank
Um,
you so much for having me.
and I'm curious to know what your one thing, folks, if you want us to respond in the chat, what's your one thing that you're taking away from this idea of PLCs today? Or maybe it's something that was validated in our conversation today with Shelley. What are you doing was there's some parity with what you were doing, and so you think that maybe that's something like, oh, she's also doing that and that's working out. So if you want to pop that in the chat. We also, I'm just going to talk to you guys just about a few things while y'all are sharing those ideas. If you have any final questions, please throw those in the chat now. We can address them here, or we can absolutely reach out. If things bubble up for y'all later and you're like, oh, wait a second, please reach out to us at training@eduphoria.net. We're always happy to hear from y'all. We love responding and connecting with our clients, our customers. And then also just a few things. Just to remind y'all about our asynchronous teacher learning courses for Strive and Aware. It's available on our teacher learning site. The link will be in the slides when they go out. We do have a question. Curious if LBHS creates PLCs with horizontal or vertical structures of the students. Vertical structure grade level, sorry. Shelley, so do y'all utilize horizontal or vertical structures with it keeps jumping, I'm trying to read it. It keeps jumping in the chat. Structures or grade levels?
Yeah, so our PLCs are the course, so it would be horizontal that they teach. And then we do try, so our school is designed in learning communities.
Oh,
So,
okay. I love that.
so all the math teachers are together in one area. They're in the depot is what their learning community is called, and they have a think tank. And so all teacher desks are in the think tank. So they eat lunch together. They're in the mornings before school and then after school. So a lot of times we will then have vertical PLC meetings.
Yeah.
So which is very beneficial to our teams as well. But the PLCs like during the day and then before school is for your horizontal team.
I love that. I haven't been inside LBHS. I need to just, I'll come down one day, take me on a
You need
tour,
to.
and then
Yes.
we'll go get some good, delicious barbecue at Shep's. Done.
Sounds awesome. Yes.
Yes, I'm seeing some other folks chime in. Yes, we all need to move in the same direction for the success of the students. I think when we're talking about sometimes those late adopters, if we kind of remind them, I know this phrase is overused, but so we'll rephrase it. remind them that they're here for the kids. No, we're not going to say remember your why, because I feel like
Yeah,
when I was a administrator, I was asked to remember my why, and I was like, "Ugh," you know, like we get told that so many times. And so, but like it's about our students, and that's where our heart
right,
lies. Um,
right.
and then we got some other folks supporting the solution tree. So it sounds like there is a few folks that are big fans of solution
Yeah,
tree. So I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom and information with us concerning PLCs, but also your insights as an educator at the great work that you're doing to ensure student success in
yeah,
Belton ISD. So thank you so much for joining.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. And thank y'all for joining us this afternoon. Like I said, the webinar will be emailed out to you within 24 hours along with the slides, and always reach out. We're always happy to hear from y'all. Have a wonderful Wednesday and happy Halloween. I wore my earrings, so happy Halloween, y'all. See you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.